Hello everyone, welcome back to Abid Siksa. এতিয়া আমি আজিৰ দিনটোৰ গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ নিউজ আৰ্টিকেল সমূহ আলোচনা কৰিম। সো আজি আলোচনা কৰিবলৈ লোৱা টপিক সমূহ হৈছে National HPV Vaccination Drive, India's trade strategy to in a multipolar world, and third number হৈছে Union Cabinet clears proposal to rename Kerala as Keralam. ঠিক আছে, এই তিনিটা গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ টপিকৰ ওপৰত আজি আমি আলোচনা কৰিম। So, the pratham topic is National HPV Vaccination Drive. Health Ministry set to roll out free HPV vaccination plan targeting girls aged 14. So, HPV junto vaccination he prokriya to ki hoy ba HPV nu ki hoy ba virus to ki hoy aro etu kenekwa dhoroner strategy adopt korise amar government e hekhini bostu olopman sam. The Union Health Ministry is launching a nationwide voluntary and free human papilloma virus HPV junto ami short ke ko this is your full form to is a human papilloma virus vaccination campaign targeting girls aged 14. This initiative follows the 2024 interim budget announcement and seeks to reduce the high burden of cervical cancer in India. So eta voluntary আৰু free human বা human papilloma virus অৰ্থাৎ HPV vaccination campaign আৰম্ভ কৰাৰ কথা গভৰ্ণমেণ্টে লঞ্চ কৰিছে। সো সেই কেম্পেইনটোত কাক টাৰ্গেট কৰিব, কোনটো এজ গ্ৰুপক টাৰ্গেট কৰিব? এজ গ্ৰুপ অফ 14, ঠিক আছে, গাৰ্লছ এজ 14। সো 14 বছৰৰ ছোৱালীসকলক এই যোনটো পলিচি আছে বা যোনটো ভ্যাকসিনেশন ক্যাম্পেইন আছে ইয়াতে তেওঁলোকক টাৰ্গেট কৰি পিনি লঞ্চ কৰা হৈছে। সো এই যোনটো ইনিশিয়েটিভ হয়, এই ইনিশিয়েটিভটো it is follows the 2024 interim budget announcements and seeks to reduce the high burden of cervical cancer in India. So key highlights of the scheme, আমি যদি স্কিমটোৰ কি highlights খিনি চাওঁ, then target group already আমি কলো girls age 14 years, approximately 1.2 crore adolescents annual. So যোনবিলাক ছোৱালীৰ 14 বছৰ হৈছে তেওঁলোকক এই ভ্যাকসিনেশনটোৰ যোনটো ড্ৰাইভ হ'ব হেতু দিয়া হ'ব। then vaccine use, যোনটো ভ্যাকসিন ইউজ কৰিব হেতু হৈছে Gardasil, a Quadrivalent vaccine by MSD যোনটো pharmaceutical firm হয় তেওঁলোকৰ এটা ভ্যাকসিন Gardasil, হে Gardasil তো ইয়াতে ইউজ কৰা হ'ব। Administration a single-dose regimen supported by ADRE and WHO evidence for this age group. So support korise National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization and WHO evidence for this age group. So single dose regimen hobo. So cost and accessibility, free of cost to government facilities, Ayushman, Arogya, Mandirs and PHCs, district hospitals as a hokolo bilakot free of cost a facility to dia chabo. Digital tracking, use of UWIN আমাৰ portal তাৰ কাৰণে launch কৰা হৈছে। UWIN portalত গোটেইখিনি registration tracking সকলোখিনি কৰিব পাৰিব just like the COVID vaccination. International support, procurement supported by Gavi, procurement কোনে support কৰিছে? It is supported by Gavi, the vaccine alliance, ঠিক আছে। Okay, so medical and scientific dimensions are some. The virus HPV is a group of more than 200 related viruses. HPV it is a group of more than 200 related viruses. High risk type 16, 18 are responsible for over 70 to 80% of cervical cancers globally and in India. So, junto 16 and 18 type hoy HPV virus grouper. So, hetu responsible hoy for 70 to 80% of cervical cancers in cancers globally and in India. So vaccine to jodi sound Gardasil protects against 4 types. Junto Gardasil vaccine hobo junto etia dia hobo hete protect kore ka 16 to 18 or 18 type of virus oncogenic cancer causing eto cancer causing junto 16 to 18 virus hoy type 16 and 18 of HPV virus. Then 6 and 8 type 6 and 11 cause genital wart. So এইখিনি ভাইৰাছৰ পৰা কি কৰে protect কৰে এই যোনটো Gardasil virus টোৱে Gardasil vaccine টোৱে why age 14 age 14 ক কিয় টাৰ্গেট কৰা হৈছে গোটেই ইমানখিনি এজ গ্ৰুপৰ মাজৰ পৰা age 14 ক কিয় টাৰ্গেট কৰা হৈছে vaccination is most effective when administered before sexual debut exposure to the virus scientific data shows a stronger immune response in younger adolescents compared to the older groups so 14 ageৰ adolescent বা 14 ageৰ girls খিনিক হেতু কাৰণে টাৰ্গেট কৰা হৈছে before sexual debut so before sexual debut target kora hoise hetu ideal boli mana hoise at the age of 14 thik ase so India cervical cancer burden cervical cancer is the second most common cancer among women in India women or jodi cancer ami sabole jao so it is second most common cancer among the women in India statistics India accounts for the nearly 1/4 of global cervical cancer deaths so one quarter of the global cervical cancer deaths jiman khini cancer deaths hoise world tare 1/4 okol India te ami pau with approximately 80,000 new cases and 42,000 deaths annually so prevention it is one of the few cancers that can be almost entirely prevented through vaccination and early screening so eto ki hoy one of the few cancers ketan cancer ami prevent koribo paru cancers or bhitor tare one of the few cancers hoy jak neki ami entirely prevent koribo paru through vaccination and early screening so here par eta MCQ probable MCQ question loi ahisu MCQ loi ahisu prelims or karne with reference to the national HPV vaccination program in India consider the following statements the program primarily targets boys and girls boys boli koar lage lage amar bhule hoy gol karon etu ki asle girls or karne age between 18 to 25 no girls of 14 age thik ase age 14 so junto statement 1 ase hetu wrong hobo India is using the quadrivalent vaccine Gardasil hoy na Gardasil use korise which provides protection against HPV type 6 11 16 and 18 so etu correct hobo e sariuta types e sariuta HPV virus or types or pora protect kore e Gardasil vaccine to the vaccine is being integrated into the universal immunization program as a mandatory shot mandatory na hoy etu eta voluntary program hoy hetu karone etu ki hobo etu wrong hobo the UN digital platform is being utilized for registration and tracking of the vaccination yes jeneke covid time at cowin use korise teneke etu এই ভ্যাকসিনেশনৰ টাইমত আমি কি ইউজ কৰিব পাৰো UN ইউজ কৰিব পাৰো so statement 2 and 4 to correct hobo so it is option B is the correct answer and আজিৰ দ্বিতীয়টো আমাৰ টপিক হৈছে India's trade strategy in a multipolar world Indiaৰ যোনটো trade strategy আমি অলপ ডিসকাস কৰিম কেনেকুৱা চলি আছে in the multipolar world So India has transitioned from a cautious negotiator to a proactive global trade partner. The core objective is to achieve 2 trillion in export by 2030, supported by a framework of strategic autonomy. In 2025, India's total exports reached a record of $825.25 billion, showing a growth of 6.5%. So আমি যদি চাও আমি দেখিবলে পাইছো যে ইন্ডিয়াৰ যোনটো ট্ৰানজিশন to from a cautious negotiator to a what proactive global trade partner so আমাৰ যোনটো core objective to হৈছে to reach $2 trillion by 2030 আমাৰ যোনটো গোল আছে ইন্ডিয়াৰ বৰ্তমান সময়ত by 2030 আমি কি কৰিব achieve কৰিব try কৰি আছো 2 trillion export আমাৰ যিমান এক্সপোৰ্ট ভ্যালু আছে হেতু $2 trillion লৈ ৰিচ কৰাৰ আমি কি কৰি আছো টাৰ্গেট কৰি আছো so in 2025 but jodi ami saw India's total export exports to Amazon that is reached a record of 825.25 billion 825.25 billion ki hoise export hoise India's falor pora showing a growth of 6.5% showing a growth of what 6.05% Okay, so the historic India EU FTA signed in January 27, 2026. Etu jehetu ami class to discuss korisilo hoy na. So January 27, 2026 at India aru EU FTA free trade agreement signed hoisle. So after 2 decades of negotiation, this deal creates a trade zone covering nearly 2 billion people. So covering nearly 2 billion people, a deal to ki korise sign kora hoise after 2 decades of negotiations. Key benefits of India. India ইয়াৰ পৰা কি benefits আছে? Level playing fields, zero duty access for labor intensive sector like textile, leather and gems jewelry, helping India compete with nations like Vietnam and Bangladesh. So zero duty access pam ami for labor intensive sectors like textile, leather and gems and jewelry, helping India compete. Amar India help koribo to compete koribo karone with whom? Nations like Vietnam and Bangladesh. So technological infusion, reduce tariffs on European machinery. Technological infusion sound, that is reduce tariffs on European machinery and medical devices, lower production cost for Indian manufacturers. So junto reduce tariff reduce kora hoise on European machinery and medical devices, that lowers what? Production cost for the Indian manufacturers. So digital services digital services, it fosters digital trade and strengthens regulatory cooperation. So key benefit of EU, ইয়াৰ পৰা EU কি benefit হৈছিল? Face tariff reductions on high-end automobiles. So কি কৈছে? Face tariff reduction on high-end automobiles down to 10%, from 110%. Wines and spirits and wines and automobiles কি দেখা গৈছে? Reduction দেখা গৈছে tariffs. From it reduced to 10% from 110%. So interim agreement with the US and all, there is on the interim agreement I saw recently hoi jua. The reciprocal framework is designed to bridge the gap before a full bilateral trade agreement. Reciprocity, the US reduced reciprocal tariffs on Indian goods from 25% to 18%. So আমি যদি চাওঁ before a full bilateral trade agreement আমি এটা reciprocal framework design বা হেতু ডিজাইন কৰা দেখিবলৈ পোৱা গৈছে US আৰু Indian মাজত to gap to hey gap to bridge koribo kan, to bridge the gap before a full bilateral trade agreement. So tar karone reciprocity ki hoy ami US reduce reciprocal tariffs, USA reciprocal tariffs reduce korise on Indian goods jun ki agate 25% logai thua asile, now it is reduced to 18%. Critical sectors, collaboration on rare earths and semiconductors to build China plus one resilient supply chain. ঠিক আছে, কি কৰিছে? Collaboration on rare earth আৰু semiconductor collaborate korise on rare earths and semiconductors rare earth collaborate korise to build China plus one. Kihor karone? To build China plus one resilient supply chain. Strategic trade, full tariff elimination on generic pharmaceutical. Full tariff elimination দেখা গৈছে on generic pharmaceuticals, aircraft parts and diamonds. ঠিক আছে? So eta prelims question ase yaru. With reference to India's trade strategy and recent agreement in 2026, consider the following statement. The India-EU free trade agreement is expected to cover over 90% of traded goods with significant tariff removals in the textile and pharmaceutical sectors. So the interim trade framework with the United States involves a reduction of reciprocal tariffs to 18% and prioritize cooperation in rare earths and semiconductors. Just ami pohi asilo, rare earth and semiconductor ami cooperation dekha goisu, and reciprocal tariff is reduced to 18%. So statement 2 is also correct. India's foreign trade policy 2023 has set a target of achieving $5 trillion in total export by year 2020-30. This is not 5 trillion. This is amar jontu goal ase, aim ase, that is what? That is 2 trillion export by 2020-30. $2 trillion export by 2020-30. ঠিক আছে, so statement 32 wrong hobo. So India-EU free trade agreement is expected to cover over 90% of traded goods with significant tariff removes in textile and pharmaceutical. This is also correct. So statement 1 and 2 are correct. So as a third junto amar statement ase, that is Union Cabinet clears proposal to rename Kerala as Keralam. Junto eta bill asila parliament to rename Kerala's name to Keralam. So hetur junto proposal asile hetu clear korise Union Cabinet. So ami sam olop kenekwa your provision bilak. The Union Cabinet chaired by PM Narendra Modi approved the proposal on February 24, 2026. Approved korise the Union Cabinet, that is chaired by PM Narendra Modi. Approved korise proposal to linguistic roots. The name Keralam is used in the Malayalam language. So junto Keralam Keralam language word hoy he Keralam naam to ki hoy used in the Malayalam language. The state was formed on November 1, 1956. Kerala state to ketia form hoisile November 1, 1956 Kerala Piravi. Based on the linguistic lines, কি কৰা হৈছে create কৰা হৈছে Kerala state to in 1956 on November 1. But the first schedule of the constitution recorded it as Kerala, the anglicized version. ঠিক আছে কিন্তু যোনটো ফাৰ্স্ট শিডিউল আছে আমি যদি তা দেখিবলৈ পাওঁ তাক শিডিউল কৰা হৈছে কেৰালা বুলি সো সেই যোনটো কেৰালা নামটো কি এতিয়া ৰিনেম কৰিব কাৰণে কেৰালাম বুলি বিল পাস কৰা হৈছিল আৰু হেতু ৰিসেন্টলি সেই প্ৰপোজালটো ইউনিয়ন কেবিনেটে কি কৰিছে ক্লিয়াৰ কৰিছে বা এপ্ৰুভ কৰিছে the Kerala Assembly passed a unanimous resolution in June 2024 seeking the change to reflect the state's culture and linguistic identity. Constitutional mechanism Europora jodi sao how to rename a state about this provision ami olopman sam the process for renaming a state is governed by article 3 jonto renaming state or rename kora hoy provision to ki hoise a process to govern governed by article 3 of the Indian Constitution. Unlike a typical constitutional amendment under Article 368, changing a state's name is considered a simple legislative process. Eto amendment hisabe constitutional amendment under Article 368 iyak dhara nai. It is considered just a simple legislative process. So amar step khini sam je keneke start hoy bini keneke amar eta kunuba ta stateor naam holoni koribo pare. Presidential recommendation: a bill for renaming a state can only be introduced in parliament with the prior recommendation of the president. With the prior recommendation of the president, a bill can be introduced in a parliament. ঠিক আছে parliament state or naam rename koribo kane tetia he introduce koribo pare jodi প্ৰেসিডেন্টৰ প্ৰায়ৰ কি থাকে ৰিকমেন্ডেশন থাকে সো স্টেপ 2 তো কি হ'ব যদি বলে প্ৰেসিডেন্টে কি দিলে ৰিকমেন্ডেশন দিলে এন্ড তাৰছত কি কৰিব বিফোৰ ৰিকমেন্ডিং দ্য বিল the president must refer it to the concerned state legislature Kerala Assembly for its views within a specific period. So a recommendation korar agote eta point ahise recommendation diar agote president e ki koribo the president must refer it to the concerned state. Junto state or naam holoni korar kotha yate alochona koribo he state to junto state assembly hoba state assembly ki koribo libo refer koribo lagibo about the matter. Non-binding. The views of the state legislature are not binding on the president or the parliament. The parliament can proceed even if the state opposes it. So in this case the state initiated it. So jodi ki boli koy jodi president refer korile to the state assembly kintu ei junto state or junto view thakibo state assembly je teuluke jodi ko objection thake ba je kono dhoroner view je teuluke junto die hetu binding nohoy on the president e teulukor kotha huniboi lagibo boli eku kotha nai কিন্তু এই ক্ষেত্রে যদি কেরালা বা কেরালামৰ ক্ষেত্রে যদি আমি চাও যেহেতু স্টেট অ্যাসেম্বলিৰ পৰা এটো ইনিশিয়েট কৰা হৈছে স্টার্ট কৰা হৈছিল যোনটো বিল সো এটো অলপ বেলে কেছ Parliamentary approval. The bill must be passed by both houses of the parliament by a simple majority. Jodi president recommendation di die aru bill parliament introduce hoi jay tetia duyota house lower house aru upper house by simple majority pass hobo lagibo ki ei bill khon. So once passed, the president signed the bill and the name is officially changed in the first and fourth schedule. So যদি দুইখন দুইটা হাউসত যদি পাস হৈ যায় বিলখন তেতিয়া কি হ'ব প্ৰেসিডেন্টে সাইন কৰিব বিলখনত আৰু the name officially change আৰু যোনটো নাম চেঞ্জ কৰিব কাৰণে বিলখন অনা হৈছিল সেই নামটো সেই ষ্টেটৰ নামটো চেঞ্জ হ'ব in the first and the fourth schedule. Amar Indian Constitution the first schedule aru fourth schedule ase hei duyotate state or naam to ki hoi jabo change hoi jabo. So yate eta MCQ loi ahisu that is with reference to the procedure of renaming a state in India consider the following statement. A bill renaming a state can be introduced in either house of the parliament only on the prior recommendation of the president. So either house of the parliament eto ki koribo pare introduce koribo pare with the prior recommendation of the president. So statement 1 is correct. The president is bound by the views expressed by president is bound boli koise ebla kodala moi stress dibo lagibo bound by the views expressed by the concerned state legislature regarding the name change. সো এইটো বাউন্ড নহয় ঠিক আছে নন বাইন্ডিং হয় এইটো সো স্টেটমেন্টটো ৰং হ'ব such a bill must be passed by a special majority in both houses of parliament as per article 368 no as per article 368 না যেহেতু আৰ্টিকল 368 ৰ পৰা এক্সক্লুড কৰা হৈছে এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ বিল বিলাকক সো এই স্টেটমেন্ট 2 টো কাৰেক্ট আৰু স্টেটমেন্ট 3 টো কি হ'ব ৰং হ'ব সো কোনটো স্টেটমেন্ট কাৰেক্ট হ'ব ইয়াৰে only one option A is correct that is statement 1 so with the prior recommendation of president so in any house either house of the parliament upper house অথবা lower house অথবা এইটো বিলটো ইন্ট্ৰোডিউস কৰিব পাৰে সো এইটোৱে আসলে আজিৰ গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ নিউজ আৰ্টিকেল সমূহ সো কাইলে আকৌ আমি কাইলৈৰ দিনটোৰ গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ নিউজ আৰ্টিকেল সমূহ আলোচনা কৰিম আজিলৈ ইমানেই আছিল থ্যাংক ইউ এভৰিওয়ান